Well, Matthew McConaughey did something in the White House press briefing room today that we've never seen before. We have seen visitors step up to the podium. We have occasionally seen actors do that. But what Matthew McConaughey had to say in the White House briefing room today may turn out to be the most important speech that an actor has ever given. And I mean ever. Because it just might save lives. It might stop a school shooting or more than one school shooting in the future if it helps move Washington to enact new laws on gun safety. It was Matthew McConaughey, as you've never seen him before, standing there with no makeup, no help from the lighting, no director, just Matthew McConaughey speaking from the heart, from the head of his own experience in his hometown of Uvalde. It was raw. It was a person trying to control his own emotions so it wouldn't get in the way of the message he needed to deliver. We're going to show you an extended piece of what he had to say today. I don't think using shorter sound bites of it actually does justice to the message or the messenger. And he delivered that speech today in the White House press briefing room when, in Texas, authorities remain in full cover-up mode from Uvalde to the state capitol, refusing to say one more word about what happened inside Robb Elementary School when a mass murderer was given 78 minutes to shoot and murder 19 children beyond recognition, along with 2 of their teachers. We have never, ever, ever seen an aftermath like this in a mass murder in a school. The Republican District Attorney, Christina Mitchell Busby, issued an absurd written statement today, hiding behind the grief of the families in Uvalde, saying there will be no statements or interviews from my office at this time, especially given that we are still burying our loved ones. The district attorney's written statement indicated that it could be maybe the rest of the year or longer before we hear anything from officials in Uvalde, because she said her so-called investigation is simply waiting to receive written reports from the Texas State Police and from the FBI. And the FBI had said that the FBI is not conducting its own actual investigation of events, but is merely going to conduct a review of the Texas investigations. There has never been a cover-up like this in the aftermath of a mass murder in one of our schools, and it might just be a temporary cover-up, timed to get the governor past his re-election campaign. This is a cover-up of what the police did and did not do inside that school. It is a cover-up that appears to be designed to, among other things, help Republican Governor Greg Abbott get re-elected. The Abbott re-election campaign is one obvious beneficiary of a cover-up that hides the truth until at least after Election Day in November. The chief of the school police force, Pete Arredondo, who was in command inside the school that day, did not show up today at a meeting of the Uvalde City Council. He won a city council election last month and was secretly sworn in last week to a job which he apparently thinks he cannot show up for when the city council has a public meeting now. The cover-up was pierced today by an anguished voice from inside the school, who now calls the police cowards, that's his word, cowards, for doing nothing for over an hour while teachers and children were bleeding to death on the floor. Anuflo Reyes is a teacher who was shot multiple times. He survived thanks to 5 surgeries in the last 2 weeks.
After everything, I get more angry because you have a bulletproof vest. I had nothing. You're supposed to protect and serve. There is no excuse for their actions. And I will never forgive them. I will never forgive them.
How many students were in your classroom when the shooter came in?
11 students.
So the shooter killed every single student in your classroom.
Yes, ma'am. That's when I got to thinking, you know, this family lost one. This family lost one. I lost 11 that day. And I just went to my parents and said, I'm sorry. I tried my best with what I was told to do. Please don't be angry with me.
Mr. Reyes told ABC's Amy Robach that he knew police were close by when he thought he was bleeding to death on the floor.
One of the students from the next door classroom was saying, officer, we're in here. We're in here. And then, but they had already left. And then he got up from behind my desk and he walked over there and he shot over there again.
Today, Republican Governor Greg Abbott promised more training to deal with mass murderers in schools.
It all happened too fast. Training, no training, all kinds of training. Nothing gets you ready for this. We trained our kids to sit under the table. And that's what I thought of, you know, at the time. But we set them up to be like ducks. You can give us all the training you want, but it's gun laws have to change. It won't never change unless they change the laws.
A man from Uvalde went to Washington today trying to change the laws.
Uvalde, Texas is where I was born. It's where my mom taught kindergarten less than a mile from Robb Elementary. Uvalde is where I learned to master a Daisy BB gun. That took 2 years before I graduated to a .410 shotgun. Uvalde is where I was taught to revere the power and the capability of the tool that we call a gun. Uvalde is where I learned responsible gun ownership.
Oscar winner Matthew McConaughey showed up at the White House today not as a visiting Hollywood liberal, but as a Texas gun owner who went back to his hometown after the mass murder trying to help, and went to Washington today to meet with the president and members of the Senate working on a bipartisan bill. Matthew McConaughey brought with him stories from Uvalde that we have not heard.
We met with the local funeral director and countless morticians who hadn't slept since the massacre the day before, because they've been working 24/7 trying to handle so many bodies at once, so many little innocent bodies who had their entire lives still yet to live. We also met a cosmetologist. She was well-versed in mortuary makeup. That's the task of making the victims appear as peaceful and natural as possible for their open casket viewings. These bodies were very different. They needed much more than makeup to be presentable. They needed extensive restoration. Why? Due to the exceptionally large exit wounds of an AR-15 rifle. Most of the bodies so mutilated that only DNA test or green Converse could identify them. Many children were left not only dead, but hollow.
Matthew McConaughey's wife, Camilla, was holding green Converse sneakers as Matthew McConaughey told the story of the 9-year-old girl who wore them on the last day of her life.
9-year-old Maite Rodriguez. Now, Maite wanted to be a marine biologist. She was already in contact with Corpus Christi University of A&M for her future college enrollment. 9 years old. Maite cared for the environment so strongly that when the city asked her mother if they could release some balloons into the sky in her memory, her mom said, "Oh, no, Maite wouldn't want to litter. Maite wore green high-top Converse with a heart she had hand-drawn on the right toe because they represented her love of nature. Camilla's got these shoes. Can you show these shoes, please? Wore these every day. Green Converse with a heart on the right toe. These are the same green Converse on her feet that turned out to be the only clear evidence that could identify her after the shooting. How about that? Maite wrote a letter. Her mom said if Maite's letter could help someone accomplish her dream, but then her death would have an impact, and it would mean her dying had a point and wasn't pointless, that it would make the loss of her life matter. The letter reads, Marine biologist, I want to pass school to get to my dream college. My dream college is in Corpus Christi by the ocean. I need to live next to the ocean because I want to be a marine biologist. Marine biologists study animals and the water. Most of the time I will be in a lab. Sometimes I will be on TV.
We've all seen great actors give great speeches, some of them written for them in plays and films and TV shows, some of them extemporaneous expressions of gratitude at award shows, some of them passionate public policy statements. What Matthew McConaughey delivered today at the White House may be the most important speech ever given by an actor. It could be a speech that saved lives if it helps create new laws that can save lives. It wasn't a polished Oscar winner's performance. It was much, much more than that. It was raw. It was a real person feeling the emotional weight of a painful experience, nervously shifting from side to side, physically trying to find his place, his center, to try to say these things that he doesn't want to have to say, nervously trying to control his emotions, contain his anger, smiling to stop himself from crying, knowing that becoming overly emotional would shift focus from the stories he came there to tell, stories that added new dimensions to our understanding of the loss and the pain that we have all witnessed in Uvalde.
We met two of the grieving parents, Ryan and Jessica Ramirez. Their 10-year-old daughter, Alethea. She was one of the 19 children that were killed the day before. Now, Alethea, her dream was to go to art school in Paris and one day share her art with the world. Ryan and Jessica were eager to share Alethea's art with us and said if we could share it, that somehow, maybe that would make Alethea smile in heaven. They told us that showing someone else Alethea's art would in some way keep her alive. Now, this particular drawing is a self-portrait, all right, of Alethea drawing with her friend in heaven looking down on her, drawing the very same picture. Her mother said of this drawing, she said, you know, we never really talked to her about heaven before, but somehow she knew. Alethea was 10 years old. Her father, Ryan, this man was steady. He was uncommonly together and calm. When a frazzled friend of his came up and said, how are you so calm? I'd be going crazy. Ryan told him, he said, no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. You'd be strong for your wife and kids because if they see you go crazy, that will not help them. Just a week prior, Ryan got a full-time line job, stringing power lines from pole to pole. And every day since landing that well-paying full-time job, he reminded his daughter Alethea, he said, girl, Daddy gonna spoil you now. Told her every single night. He said, Daddy's gonna take you to SeaWorld one day. But he didn't get to spoil his daughter. Lethea, she did not get to go to SeaWorld. Then there was Ellie Garcia, a 10-year-old, and her parents, Stephen and Jennifer. Ellie loved to dance and she loved church. She even knew how to drive tractors and was already working with her dad and her uncle mowing yards. Now, Ellie was born Catholic, but had been going to Baptist church with her uncle for the last couple of years. Her mom and dad were proud of her because they said she was learning to love God no matter where. The week prior to her passing, she'd been preparing to read a verse from the Bible for the next Wednesday night's church service. The verse was from Deuteronomy 6:5. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. That's who Ellie was becoming. But she never got to read it. Service on that Wednesday night.
Matthew McConaughey and his wife visited the family of Irma Garcia, one of the teachers who was murdered.
Then there was a fairy tale love story of a teacher named Irma and her husband Joe. What a great family this was. Kids were 23, 19, 15, and 13. They shared all these stories about Irma and Joe. Both worked overtime to support their 4 kids. Irma even worked every summer when school was out. The money she had made 2 summers ago paid to paint the front of the house. The money she made last summer paid to paint the sides of the house. This summer's work was going to pay to paint the back of the house. Because Irma was one of the teachers who was gunned down in the classroom. Joe, her husband, literally died of heartache the very next day when he had a heart attack. They never got to paint the back of their house.
If change is going to come, it's going to come because of the stories of the dead. The kind of stories Matthew McConaughey told us today. Matthew McConaughey ended his 21 minutes at the podium in the White House briefing room this way.
You know what every one of these parents wanted, what they asked us for? What every parent separately expressed in their own way to Camilla and me? That they want their children's dreams to live on. That they want their children's dreams to continue to accomplish something after they are gone. They want to make their loss of life matter. So where do we start? We start by making the right choices on the issue that is in front of us today. We start by making laws that save innocent lives and don't infringe on our Second Amendment rights. We start right now by voting to pass policies that can keep us from having as many Columbine, Sandy Hooks, Parklands, Las Vegases, Buffaloes, and Uvaldes from here on. We start by giving Alethea a chance to be spoiled by her dad. We start by giving Mayte a chance to become a marine biologist. We start by giving Ellie a chance to read her Bible verse at the Wednesday night service. We start by giving Irma and Joe a chance to finish painting their house. Maybe retire, get that food truck. We start by giving McKenna, Layla, Miranda, Nevaeh, Jose, Javier, Tess, Rogelio, Eliana, Annabelle, Jackie, Azuya, JC, Jayla, Ava, Amory, and Lexi. We start by giving all of them our promise that their dreams are not going to be forgotten. we start by making the loss of these lives matter. Thank you. Thank you.